Each Friday, the Liberal MP in the Brisbane electorate of Longman, Wyatt Roy, joins Breaking Politics for a chat. Wyatt, thank you for coming in today. You've had an early start. Tell us what's on.
I did have an early start. Today is the Walk for Daniel, which is supporting the Daniel Morecambe Foundation, and all Australians know the story of Daniel, who is my age, but also of Bruce and Denise, his parents that went through the most awful circumstance and have turned it into something incredibly positive, getting the message out there about child safety. Here in Queensland, we've actually implemented the Daniel Morecambe curriculum, which implements child safety preventative measures out there so that we don't see these tragic circumstances happening again. And as legislators, we have to do what we can to punish people that commit these evil acts, but also try and prevent these acts from occurring in the first place. So this morning was a great celebration of the work of Bruce and Denise, two amazing Australians, and supporting a really good cause.
And for yourself, a very early start?
It was a very early start, the life of a politician, but I'm very happy to do that to support Bruce and Denise. They are, in my mind, I don't think many Australians could go through what they went through, go through that pain and fight on and turn it into something so positive. So my early start is very small in comparison to what they've done.
To some of the politics, the Treasurer, according to the Financial Review, is at least pondering whether an arm of Medibank Private might not oversee the National Disability Insurance Scheme as opposed to building a new bureaucracy to run it. What do you think?
Well, I think we should have all options on the table, and I think it's incredibly important that we implement the NDIS the right way. In my mind, this is a once-in-a-generation opportunity to get this system right. I think there is some serious problems with the state systems running disability and the state bureaucracies around that. And philosophically, the NDIS is a fantastic idea with great opportunity, but we have to make sure that's implemented in the right way. Otherwise, we run the risk of replacing a bad system with a bad system. And I don't believe that opportunity for this once-in-a-generation change would come back again. So I think it is important we do have all options on the table, that we do what we can. I worked as a participation assistant, effectively a carer for a mate of mine that has spinal muscular atrophy, and having seen the system firsthand, it is the need to jump through loopholes to sort of try and prove yourself in a very cumbersome bureaucratic system, one that doesn't recognise need. It's not based on need, it's based on process. It's really important that we get the NDIS implementation right, and I'm very happy that Joe's looking at all options to do that in the best possible way.
This week we've seen both the Prime Minister and the Environment Minister distance themselves from the notion that the bushfires might be linked to higher temperatures in Australia caused by human-made climate change. Are you concerned that as they distance themselves from that notion, they're looking more and more like climate skeptics?
Well, we're not scientists. Politicians are not elected to the parliament to be scientists. We get our advice from scientific experts, and I think that that's probably really important, that we don't expect our elected representatives to come to the parliament with strong science degrees. They should take that advice. I think for me, from what I've seen, I think climate change certainly seems real. It certainly seems plausible. It certainly seems like we need to have a strong insurance policy against the effects of climate change, but that should be done in the most effective way, and we certainly don't think that the carbon tax is the most effective way to do that. We think it has a very serious impact on the economy, on jobs, on employment, and there are better ways to deal with the challenges of climate change. So again, drawing a link to the bushfires in New South Wales is not something I think a politician should be tasked with. It's something a scientist should be tasked with. We are a country that is famous for droughts and flooding rains and extreme weather events. So I'll let the scientific community draw those links. As a policymaker, we need to have a look at what are the best policies to have a strong economy and to deal with the challenges that the future will present.
But the scientists have drawn those links, haven't they? They've said that warmer temperatures will mean more bushfires.
Yeah, absolutely, of course. And the question is this particular bushfire to blame because of climate change, or is it to blame because Australia has an extreme weather environment in a natural setting? Who knows? But that's for other people to make a direct link. But for us, we want to do what we can to prevent the effects of a dangerous climate change. One of the important things that I think that the government and the parliament should focus on too is adaptation. So we have a strong debate about the prevention of climate change, but I don't think there's a real strong debate in the community about adaptation, about how do we deal with climate change that will happen. We're only just over 1% of global emissions. We need to collectively, as a globe, deal with the challenge of climate change, but as a government, as a society, and as a community, we also need to talk about, well, how do we deal with the changing climate in terms of, you know, the resources for fighting those bushfires, for the flood proofing of our roads, of how we develop that sort of community and national infrastructure to deal with it. So there's a few debates that politicians have to have, and it's not just an all or nothing, is climate change causing this or not.
Wyatt Roy, is the government right, or is at least the immigration minister right, to standardise the term for those arriving by boat as illegal arrivals?
Well, you do have to have a definition, and it is not illegal to seek asylum, but it is illegal to arrive by boat without documentation. And you know, these are things for bureaucrats to sort of work through, but I think you do have to have a definition. It is illegal to arrive by boat without the appropriate documentation, and to call it something else is not really being on it. So I think as a government, we just have to be upfront with people, and I think that's what the immigration minister is doing, and good on him for doing it.
You saw this week the events in the ACT with regard to same-sex marriage, and you know that the Attorney-General, a Queensland colleague from the Liberal Party, George Brandis, is going to fight this in the High Court. How comfortable are you with that fight, given the joy, frankly, that the ACT legislation has brought for many same-sex couples?
Well, I am a supporter of same-sex marriage, and you know, I feel quite strongly about that. But I think what is important is that we have a standard definition of marriage across the country, and I think that that's important for the well-being of our society, for the hopes and dreams of so many people, as you said. So I personally would like to see the Commonwealth, the Marriage Act. It is a Commonwealth responsibility marriage, and we'll see what the High Court decision brings down. But I would like to see that uniform definition across the country. And for me, I would not like to see false hope in some ways provided to people. I think that's kind of cruel if it's not really the responsibility of the territory to define marriage. I think that, you know, if we are to see same-sex marriage in Australia, it should be done at the Commonwealth level. It should be a uniform definition and an understanding, and that's the change that I would want to see. So this is far more a legal fight and an understanding of state and territory rights than it is really about whether you do or don't support same-sex marriage.
Given you sit inside the joint party room, the Nationals and Liberals party room, do you think there's a chance that the fuss caused by the ACT laws and the High Court might actually be the catalyst for stirring the joint party room to discuss this and make a decision?
Well, the Joint Party Room does have an agenda, and that agenda is set by the legislation that comes before the Parliament. So if there is to be a catalyst for a discussion, it would be legislation before the Parliament. There is currently no legislation before the Parliament, and I can't see that discussion happening in the party room just yet, but should legislation come before the federal Parliament, that's when we'll have a discussion in the party room. And I look forward to that discussion should it happen.
Wyatt Roy, enjoy having you on Breaking Politics as always.
Thanks, Tim. Cheers.